guys, welcome back. So, in the last video we've been dealing with text animations and how we can systemize our workflow. So, continuing that thought, what we do with these videos, as I'm sure Alex has went into already, we use a lot of stock footage, we use a lot of movie scenes, which if you leave them as they are, can feel a little bit cheap. It can feel a little bit stock footagey. We end up creating a few overlays, a few alphas, and a few effects that we can just pop on top, nice and simple to use, but make the video feel a little bit more professional, a bit more bespoke, and make it a little bit more engaging to watch. So that's what we're gonna do today. We'll have a look at this one that I've made already. We'll fit it, and then we'll just press play. And then, yeah, if I drag a little piece of footage underneath this, I can show you exactly what it'll look like once it's in Premiere. So we've got an overlay that is a little bit in keeping with our Art Deco style and makes our animation feel a little bit more bespoke. So we'll close that, and I'm going to show you how I made this. So let's go to Final Comps, and we are going to make a new composition. We're going to call this Overlay. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few more of those Art Deco kind of corner pieces or kind of like backgrounds and just things like that. So I'm going to go online, I'm going to get a bit of inspiration. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a corner. So I quite like something to kind of like really frame the piece. So we're going to want those corner pieces that you saw I created earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to New, Shape Layer. I'm going to go to this little button down here, which is your overlays on the composition view. I'm going to add the grid. Grid simply makes it easier for me to make sure I'm kind of keeping things lined up. If I go to View, Snap to Grid, so I know there that is in the middle. Same there, same there. So I can really be sure that my shapes are the right dimensions. So let's rename that. Let's call that corner piece. Corner piece. Beautiful. I'm going to go up to the corner and I'm just going to mess around with some shapes, I think. So let's get my pen tool using the shortcut G. I'm going to go up to there. I'm going to go here. So that's 4 across. Go 4 down. So I've got a nice little square. And then I think I'll just go over to there. So that is the same length as equidistant. I'm going to make... name this corner piece. Corner piece. I'm going to go back into my shape layer, get rid of the fill because I don't actually want the fill. I just want the shape. I think I'm going to move it over as well actually because it's a little bit close to the border of the composition. So let's move him over. I think just there we go. Perfect. That's it. So we're going to go to Windows, Project, my palette now. So I've got my shape layer. I'll go to Stroke. I'm going to pick whip and I'm going to go get that orange, that orangey yellow. I'm going to make my stroke a little bit bigger. Perfect. I think actually, looking at this now, this line, these lines go down a little bit too far. So I'm going to go back to my path. I'm going to maybe bring it in by two big boxes. So 3, and I'm going to down my stroke a bit. Let's go to 14. That's looking pretty good. I'm now going to add a few other lines because I think those will spice it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my shape layer. I'm going to add a path. I'm going to click there. I'm going to click there. I'm going to click there. And this is very rough. Don't worry if this is a little bit off to begin with. So I'm going to grab that point, make sure it's on the grid right. Same with you. You seem a little bit off. A little bit lower. There we go. So there we got an L. That looks quite cool. And then we're going to add another path. Shape, add, path. Lovely. And let's make sure this is about... So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're 4 little squares inwards. So we need to do the same with this line. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Great, that's our first one. Then we're going to go to there, and then we're just going to go down here, and we'll need to length those shortly. Let's drag the path above the stroke, just so the colours are coming through. And that's looking all right. I quite like that. That's quite nice. Obviously, this arm is a little bit too long again, so let's find out how big this one is. So we've got 1 big square, 2 big square, 3 big square, and we got 2. So that is 3.5 big squares. So we'll do the same here. So there's our half. We got 1, 2, 3. So that is where this line should end. And if we get rid of our grid, and then lo and behold, we've got our little corner piece. So what I'd probably do, I think I'd probably put a bit more length on this L actually. Let's whack our grid back on just to make sure we're being accurate. And let's just bring it in 2. And the same with this one, bring that in 2. And yeah, that's much better for me. I think that looks a little bit nicer. But now we need 4 of them. So we're gonna duplicate that shape layer. I'm gonna go open the shape layer, I'm gonna go transform. I'm gonna go to my scale, I'm gonna unlink, and I'm gonna put X scale as -100. So that is literally just flipped, and we know it's symmetrical. Fantastic, nice and easy. So I'm gonna do this another 2 times. I'm going to go shape 3, I'm going to transform, I'm going to go scale, and I'm going to change the second function this time, so I flip it on the y-axis to -100. There we go. Once again, it's perfectly in line. So now let's go to shape layer 3, duplicate that, and then we are going to do it one final time. And this time, instead of putting a minus, I'm actually going to get rid of this minus to flip it on the x-axis back the other way. So there we go. We got 4 corner pieces, and we can use them throughout the whole video. To be honest, so if an animation's feeling a little bit kind of dry, we can always come back and just grab these corner pieces because they'll, 1, make the video more congruent, and 2, they'll just make it more interesting. So I'm going to add a glow because glows are always fun. I don't like how much it's changed the color personally, so I'm going to adjust that with the threshold. And the intensity probably. There we go, intensity. Bring that maybe back up to like a half or something like that. But the thing I really want to adjust is the glow radius, because this is the thing that's going to like really make it feel a little bit kind of like that it's glowing. So I'm going to up that to 53. Quite like that. If we look at the before and after, yeah, that's doing stuff, that is. I love that. I might even duplicate this. I might have 2 glow layers. One that's more centralized. Same with this, bring the intensity down a little bit. There we go, and that's looking good to me. Like if we get rid of those, like that's coming a long way. I am gonna do some expressions on the glow function just to make it feel like, you know, when a light's kind of glowing, it kind of like flares a little bit. That's what I think I'm gonna do. I'm going to go to the radius, I'm gonna alt click. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to use the wiggle function. So wiggle simply means change this value over time by a certain amount. It just makes it fluctuate a little bit. It just kind of randomizes it. So we're going to type in wiggle, wiggle, open bracket. You're going to use 2 numbers. For instance, it's going to look like 5, 5. What that would mean is it's going to fluctuate 5 times a second. So that's quite fast. And it's going to do it by 5 units of value. So it'll go between 58 on the radius and 48. I think 5 is a little bit low. I might go 8. And I think the flicker should maybe be a little bit slower, maybe like 3. Maybe it does need to be a bit faster. So let's change that back up to, let's go up to 8. And then let's change that to 12. See, now it is going too fast. So it's probably just our radius that needed adjusting. There we go, that's nice. Nice and subtle. The thing is with these animations, you don't want to go crazy on them. You don't want them to be like really grabbing your attention. Like the thing is with animation, it's about details. And the more detailed and subtle the animations are, the more it's really going to appeal to the viewer's eye. So we're going to go to content. We're going to animate the lines on. We'll go trim paths, the same thing that we've done a million times before now. We're going to trim paths, going to go to end, probably drag this into about 3 seconds, and we're going to start at 0. We're going to F9 that, and then lo and behold, beautiful, love that. I think I will go to the graph editor for this animation. So this is really where we can kind of really give the animation a bit of character. So instead of it being quite so linear as like how it comes on there, we can make it come on fast by using this graph editor. You'll notice that with After Effects there's a lot of kind of mathematics that are quite important to it. You don't need really deep understanding of maths, but it does help. For the most part you can kind of get past by with like maybe GCSE algebra. But if you want to go into some really complex stuff, it does help to kind of be a little bit more comfortable around numbers. And this is one instance that I mean. So if we look at this, you'll notice that we got a graph thing we've seen probably a million times in GCSE or A-level if we've been that far. This basically is the speed time graph. So it essentially means how fast the animation takes place. So I'm going to want the animation to take place a lot faster at the start, and I want it to slow down a little bit more like kind of elegantly. So what I'm doing is I'm dragging in these anchors, and it just makes the graph change shape. So this steep gradient here simply means that the animation will start off really fast, and then this lower gradient here where it's a little bit more of a dip, a bit more of an arch, that simply means that the animation will end quite slow. So let's go back to the keyframes, maybe spread them out a little bit more, and let's just have a look at what that looks like. Nice, I like that. It feels a bit more elegant, and I think that's important for like this Art Deco style, if you ask me. So what could I do here? I'd maybe like to put a little emblem or something at the top. That's a little bit interesting, isn't it? Let's put a little emblem or just a shape or something, which we can do in the same shape layer. Let's go add rectangle, and we'll put that in its own group. Put the rectangle in the group. Let's take one of these stroke layers from our corner piece, bring it into the group, copy and paste, and then we got ourselves a little rectangle. That's not in the place I want it to be. I want it to be more like up here. Make it a little bit smaller. And just mess around with the position of it. I quite like that. Like that. So maybe what I'm going to do is I'm also going to duplicate this rectangle, and I think I'm going to add that rectangle to its own group within that rectangle, just so I can adjust the transform properties. Drag that in there, and I'm just going to rotate this group 45 degrees, I think. 45 degrees. It's obviously thrown the rectangle over there, but it's fine, we can bring it back into position. We're going to make this rectangle just that little bit smaller. There we go. I quite like this. That's nice. There we go. And that's a nice little emblem. I think that will work just as it is, to be honest. And hopefully that animates on in the same way as everything else. Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. So we got ourselves a nice little corner piece. So what else can we do here? So I think we're going to want some background information as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new shape layer. I'm going to call this background shapes. It may feel like we're spending a lot of time on just like corner pieces or expressions or systems within After Effects, but you can always reuse these. Like, these are going to make your job easier as we go along. The more thorough we are at the start, the quicker our job is at the end. And let's be honest, when we get to the end of a production, things do get a little bit more fast-paced because we've got looking at deadlines. We're looking at compositions that have got a lot of information in them at this point. Having good systems to control your assets and presets and design assets that we can keep coming back to is really going to help us out towards the end of the process. So what I'm going to do is I am going to zoom in, bring my grid back. Hello there. I'm going to add a path. I'm going to snap that there, snap that there, snap that there, snap that there, and I've made myself a little diamond. I'm going to add a stroke. Got my palette, get that orange back. Let's add a group. And now I've made my little diamond and I've got this in its own group as well. So I'm going to want to move this anchor point because I'm going to want to scale everything about, actually, well, yeah, I'm going to want to move that anchor point so it's centralized. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like kind of a diamond kind of Art Deco wallpaper style thing. So if we look at the one I've already made, I'm going to make this background layer here. So yeah, these diamonds are really cool and I think they're really in keeping with the design style. So I'll add a bit more power to the stroke, maybe double it. There we go, that's fine. We're going to decrease the scale. And I'm just going to do a few of these. So decrease the scale. I'm going to increase the scale here. Might even consider upping the stroke a little bit. Same again. Up the scale. That's looking a bit big to me, actually. I think we started a little bit too large with our first diamond. So let's bring it back down to size. Let's bring it down to there and up the stroke, because I think you're not really seeing the line come through now. And actually it might be nice to start from a solid color actually. So where's our scale again? Drop that down. There we go. There we go, that's looking better. Just reduce our scale on that one as well, please. Yeah, nice. And group 3, transform, bring the scale down to there. It's getting there. I think we'll put one more diamond. I think one more diamond would be nice. So same drill, duplicate the group, transform. Make the scale a touch bigger. Yeah, I think that's working for me. I'm gonna add these all to one overall group, so we've got just one diamond layer, and now we can adjust our overall scale of that as well, which would be nice. There we go, that's looking cool. At this point it is just a bit of trial and error, because it is designed, so we're going to want a bit of experimentation time. So we got group 5, which is our diamond layers we've just made, so we'll get rid of the grid so we can see it properly. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a repeater, and a repeater does what it says on the tin. It just repeats the pattern that we've made. If we go to the transform repeater drop down tab, this is how it's going to repeat. So if we move the position left and right, it's going to repeat with a bigger gap. If we do a scale, it's going to repeat like that, which is quite interesting. But we don't need anything quite that complicated. So we're going to make the diamonds on top of each other. I'm going to bring them down, and then I'm just going to up this value to say, I don't know, 15. 15 looks good to me. I'm probably going to bring that over here, and then I'm going to add another repeater. So we've now got 3 rows. I'm going to offset them just a little bit more so they're a bit more interesting. There we go, that's looking good. Let's zoom in on that, make sure we're scaling it properly. Thing is with repeaters, if you scale them incorrectly, even a slight error with the positioning, that'll be extrapolated over, obviously, you know, what will be probably 100 repetitions. So let me just make that 10, 20. Because of the way that it has repeated, there's a few issues with, there's a bit of a gap up there. So I'm just going to drag the original composition up, and I'm going to go to that first repeater. I'm going to make this like 23. There we go. And now we've got an entire composition covered by these diamonds. But now I want a little something extra to kind of add a bit of depth, a bit more texture to the background, because at the minute it looks cool, like but it looks a little bit like wallpaper from the 1950s. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download a little overlay from ArtGrid. I have actually already got one that I found earlier. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this into my composition, and now, as we see, we have got that got this swirly twirly overlay functiony thing right over the top. So obviously we're working in portrait, so I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. I'm going to scale this 50%, and then that takes up our whole composition. Perfect. So I'm going to take my background shapes, I'm going to drag it over the video we just put in the composition, and I'm just going to change the blending mode to say overlay. And that's looking pretty cool. This looks quite cool. Maybe I'll change it to soft light so it's a little bit more subtle. There we go, I get a bit more detail there. I'll probably rotate this because I don't like what it's doing at the top. That's just from a lightly. There we go, that's a little bit nicer. Yeah, nice. I like that. What I'm going to do is I might add a vignette as well, because vignettes are always yummy. So let's grab that ellipse, drag you in there, press M twice to get our mask options up, invert, feather, expansion, the same thing we've done a million times. Yeah, love that, love that. So I need to break a hole in this composition now, so I can see kind of the footage that we're working with. And I'm gonna pre-compose all of these, I think, and call this our top layer. And then what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab an overlay, which is going to allow us to see through this layer. This is something I found in ArtGrid. This is an ink alpha, which is going to be pretty useful for us here. So I'm going to drag this into my composition. I'm going to rotate this by 90 degrees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an alpha matte now. The same way we've done it plenty of times before, and basically I only want to see that top layer in the places where the image is black. So let's have a little look at what that might look like. So we're going to go to the top layer, we're going to go to track matte, and we're going to go ink alpha. And nothing will happen so far because the clip takes the whole screen. So it will just show the whole screen. Instead of doing an alpha matte, we want to do what's called a luma matte. So it'll only show where the image is brightest. And obviously there's a pretty stark contrast between black and white in this footage, so it should do exactly what we're looking for. So let's go to track matte, let's go to ink, nothing will happen. And what I'm going to do is change this from alpha matte to a luma matte. Aha, now we're cooking. And if I invert that, now we've got this cavity here of ink, which is just going to show, there we go, that's looking nice, which will show the our footage underneath. So let's grab Squid Games again. We've got this interesting ink overlay. We can have animations going up on this top layer. We can have animations happening below as well. But now we've got this really cool kind of overlay, which we can use again and again and again throughout the video, just to make things a little bit more interesting. And now I could literally just render this, and we can put this on top of our footage in Premiere, as long as we use certain functions in our render, which we'll discuss in a future video. So that's how we do overlays. Experiment with this, and you can kind of mess around with ways to kind of like make them more interesting or add extra animations or things like that. But the principles are always the same. We basically are making a layer that we can see through. So when we bring it into Premiere, we can see our stock footage underneath, and we have animations going on out around the outside. So I'll see you in the next video.